Thank you much, Director Sang. I welcome you to this program, and I really find that the discussion is a discussion that for the ages and one that we should keep in mind. There are some things that are best forgotten and some that we should always remember. And the debate and the topics and the thoughts expressed today are things that we should include in our lifetime, in our children's lifetime, so that the kinds of issues that we as a people faced, other people who are different in some fashion, by some way of life, we will protect their rights so that this debate won't be needed for their interests and their causes. Again, I welcome you to John Marshall Law School. I'm delighted by the work that's been done and presented today. I would like to turn the dais back over to Professor Sang.
Thank you, Dean Smith.
Thank you.
We do have some time now for some questions and discussion, so I'd like to open up the program to all of you. Because we are recording this program, I will try to paraphrase your questions so that they are preserved for posterity. Any comments or questions from anyone, or any additional comments that anyone of our speakers have? Yes.
My name is Iris Johnson. I'm from Evanston. I've been kind of involved in quite a few things. Matter of fact, I've been state president of the NAACP and heavily involved within my chapter. Also, if you pull up the ad hoc committee, you'll find out that I was part of the ad hoc committee that formed the Illinois Justice Commission. So I have a little knowledge and background, I think. Yes, I do believe that there should be affirmative action, only because I don't think the mindset and the hearts of the people is right. Because if that was the case, we would need affirmative action. We only have affirmative action because we will not allow this not to be the reason for discriminating. You have to understand this country was built off of discrimination. It is part of the reason why you have the haves and have not. It is part of the reason why you have some of us who have jobs and don't have jobs. It is part of the reason why some of us have education, not education. If you've ever read the Willie Link document, as a one person, it may not be authentic, but it is true. What they actually did to the black man at that time, it was asked, will they ever be able to overcome this? And in the statement, it said they probably will not. So what has happened is not that we are lazy. You got to look, we came here as a group of people not knowing nobody, not being able to associate with anybody. We were took of our culture, any and everything that we ever know was taken. We was reprogrammed and regroomed. So we only had what we were taught. We only knew what we were taught. So when you take an individual and take everything he got from his culture, strip him down to his naked, and take everything and reprogram him to be somebody that he's not. I've often said to myself, I will be 70 years old on the 26th of October of this year. And I've often said to myself, I wonder what Black America would be like if we came here as free people. If we came here, I think as you mentioned, as Hispanics, as all the rest of the immigrants. If we'd had that opportunity to come here as free people, where would we be today? Because my knowledge of Africans, it wasn't that they couldn't read, it wasn't that they couldn't write. They were some very well-knowledge, educatable people who had their own government system, not what we were programmed to think. So based on what I've learned through my knowledge and research, what would we actually be and where would we be today as black people if we were allowed to come here as the average white man, Hispanic or whatever you may be, and fend for ourselves? Because we were at a disadvantage. And I think he said also that nobody owes us anything. Well, you know what? I think you do. Because this country was built off of our blood, our sweat, our tears, and our children. I don't believe, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I don't believe America would be where it is today without slavery. because we brought a lot of that knowledge here to this country. We enabled this country to, yes, I think the country owes us something back. Out of everybody in this country have gotten an apology except black folks. I've not heard one time anybody say that I'm sorry for slavery. It was wrong. And even though you stated that Africans sold black folks into slavery, yes, they did do that. However, they didn't sell them in the kind of brutal slavery that was going on here in America by Europeans. It was a total difference of slavery. The slavery here was unheard of. I understand there was even a black king in Africa who attempted to try to stop it, but couldn't do it because of the greed. So I say this to say, yes, I believe we need affirmative action, because I don't believe America, and maybe any place else to deal in it, hearts and mind are to the point where they can set aside the color, or they can set aside, it doesn't make any difference what color you are. What the Bible is, Dr. Martin Luther, is not about the color you see, but the content of the character. Until that day, until we can get to the point where everybody here in America started judging people by the content of their character and not by the color of skin. I have 4 children, I'm gonna shut up. I raised my children to this. Do not ever allow this to be the reason to dislike anybody. Because if you do, you'll have a problem for the rest of your life. I don't care if you're black, green, yellow, purple, whatever, white. If you're no good, you're no good. Because this don't have nothing to do with it. Every race that there is have people in it that is not about shit, excuse expression for saying that. So that's that. So it ain't about me this here. It's about either you good or you're not. You're either a good spirit or bad spirit. And until we learn today to accept people for who they are and what they are and by what they offer and the content of their character, we're going to continue to have this. And you're going to need affirmative action until we can all come together and put aside the difference that, hey, you are my brother. If I can help you, I can help you. It ain't got nothing to do because you're not me. And until we can get to that point, yes, you need affirmative action. And I tell you what, get rid of it and see what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. That's very eloquent. I cannot repeat that comment in any way. I would just say that to summarize what Ms. Jones said, that it's a result of the mindset of the people and the history, and that slavery in many ways has produced the United States, and we cannot cleanse that from our midst, and we have to accept that. And I'd like any reaction from any of our panelists. Yes.
I'd say that I have to disagree with you because I believe the facts don't bear that out. If you look at the history before affirmative action and all the things that black people were able to accomplish, you can't say that it's been white people who have kept us back. We accomplished despite all the odds that were set against us. I mean, you talk about Black Wall Street, people had money. And actually, if you read Booker T. Washington's book, he talks about how even some of the, when slavery was over, how some of the slaves felt kind of sorry for their slave masters because it was the slaves that were doing all the labor. A lot of these white slave masters didn't know how to do half of the work around the plantations because all the black people were doing it. They were shoeing the horses, they were sewing, they were doing all these things, and they had no skills. So actually, slaves, when they left, a lot of them had skills that they actually could use to make money. Now, it was later, after you had the Black Wall Street, and we know the story about Rosewood and how the KKK come and try to destroy some of the things because they were jealous of what black folks were actually accomplishing. And that's where you get to Frederick Douglass. Just leave us alone. Let us do our own thing. You don't need to help us, and you don't need to get in our way. Stop tying up our hands. Untie us, and let us do our thing. I feel like affirmative action, first of all, can we name anything, anywhere where you know empirically that affirmative action has done something positive?
I look at affirmative action as a piece of, as a law. I don't look at it as in the text that you guys put, where you're coming from. I look at it as a piece that says, I know that if I don't do this, there's a piece of law out there that says that you have to do right. And you're saying, in your belief, and nothing wrong, because I believe everybody's entitled to their own beliefs and their own thing. Your mindset is what to me, has had a lot of blacks in a state of where thinking that we have arrived. And a course that I took, as a teacher said one time, it's not necessarily that black folks have been, you're right. What has happened because you've gone and got the education, because you have done some things, the word is tolerate, not accept, tolerate. So a lot of stuff, yes, has happened based out of the word of being tolerant, because you have followed the procedure. You've gone to the schools, you've got the degrees, you did this, you did that. So there has to be some kind of reward at the end of the rainbow. So therefore, because you have followed all the instructions, because you've been this person who's went down that path, now we're going to reward you. But it's not about, I think anybody, don't get me wrong, and I don't mean this to say I love America and I'm against anybody, but I think there's too many of us that are not really looking at what's wrong in this country and accepting and trying to work together and not pit one another against each other, but really to work. And I really believe that racism has been like a cancer to me for this country. It has eaten this country up so that I wonder if it will ever find its way back. I have some best of friends that are white, so everybody's not that way, but there's too many of us who we can't see the real picture for a lot of other things. You, just like for you sitting there, you're light complected. A brother going up there was dark complected. You got better treatment back in the day than the brother sitting over here because you were accepted. And I believe I had a cousin who was very light complected, went to a Catholic school, who sort of, because of some of the treatment she got, thought she was better than some of the other blacks. And my friends said, what's wrong with your cousin? So I'm saying there's a lot of stuff, and until we really go back and sit down and truly, really look at stuff, and I'm not talking about blame anybody. I'm talking about let's look at what's really wrong with our system and why some things don't want to work. It ain't necessarily putting it on affirmative action, because the problem was there before affirmative action got there. What the problem is, what can we do to make sure that things are, and you don't need affirmative action. I'm not, but the only reason I will get out of it because I got to go back to work. This is a subject and some stuff because of some stuff that I've been to, and maybe because of the age that I am now. I really enjoy it because I think we all really need to stop and start thinking and look at the picture for what it's really worth and try to make it be what it's not.
Okay, I think you've raised a question that maybe should be addressed. If we don't have affirmative action, and we clearly have inequalities in society that continue from slavery, pre-slavery on to the present day, how do we get America to be the country that we would like it to be?
Excuse me, may I?
Yes.
I'm going to speak for affirmative action because when you look at me, you are looking at, I am in fact a product of affirmative action. When I had the opportunity, and I don't believe that I would have had the opportunity to attend law school, the University of Arkansas, when I was going to school in the early 70s, I opted not to go to law school, and I went on active duty. 6 years later, during the Reagan administration, and I'm not saying that's the cause of it, that opportunity was not available for me to go to law school. Okay, well, what did I do? Well, it was affirmative action. And I think people would not have come up with the concept of affirmative action if there had not been some research to say this is in fact going on. And what it was states decided that they needed to have affirmative action goals because of what has happened in the past. Now, and it's still happening today. In the military, it was the same way. And I am a United States veteran. My sister was my youngest sister was an Iraqi veteran who experienced not affirmative action. It was not until when she had a problem with her officers in the military, even though Equality was there, individualism was there, but she experienced racism. It was not until there was intervention by the NAACP that she got some remedy for the wrong that she experienced as a United States veteran. And she just happened to be a black female. So, and I want to say this, if you want to be just about it, and I remember Attorney Morris saying earlier about how that, okay, the individuals who did not discriminate, well, they're having to, then they are being treated unequally. Well, James Fillmore, and this is a spiritual and mental type of thing, is that we're talking about a race consciousness. So if you are predisposed hundreds and thousands of years to be racist or for a certain group of people, then that means that your ancestors and the people that are born into you will also be that too, because they are predisposed. That is not only a spiritual concept, it is scientific. So how do we fix it? We can't fix it by getting rid of affirmative action, but really understanding the purpose and the reason behind affirmative action. And it is positive action. Positive action equipped with the love principle of, yes, individualism. But we have to treat everybody the same way. But if we are not predisposed to do that, we're not going to do it. And Dr. Wallace, yeah, always leave me alone. But everything for the longest has been institutionalized. And that is why we had de jure discrimination, and we also had de facto discrimination, I think.
Dr. Professor Shane, can I say something very quickly?
Okay.
Just to hit on both you guys' points, you made a point about slavery, and she hit on it as well. You're right. A lot of people that were sold into slavery were sold by African. They were like warriors who lost in battle, and they were sold by their captors. But as she did say, it was a caste system. It wasn't a system where you were a slave in Africa and then you were a slave for life. There were slaves who became kings and generals. And when you were sold into slavery here, you didn't have that opportunity. You were a slave. You were a piece of property, and that's what you were. And I always thought the point of affirmative action was to make right some of those wrongs. Because for a lot of times, African Americans in this country had no rights. They weren't even African Americans, they were just African slaves. And the point of affirmative action, I always thought, was to bring in a form of equality. The other gentleman, you hit on the fact, and then you also came back to it. You talked about Rosewood and you talked about Black Wall Street. Well, that is times when we were left alone and we were productive. And those were times when white America interfered and both of those were destroyed. And the point of affirmative action was to try to compensate for that and make up for some of that. It was never about giving anybody an advantage. It was about offering us equality. Because like this lady hit upon,